You are the sunshine of my life.
The winner is, and the winner is, you are the sunshine of my life, Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder for Activism.
Stevie Wonder!
When you talk about legends, real legends, Stevie Wonder's name isn't just in the conversation, it's leading it.
Legend tonight.
He's had 10 #1 hits in the U.S. and sold over 100 million records.
Your album was the first CD that I ever took myself when I was 6 years old and put it in the CD player.
Singer, songwriter, producer, musician, activist, humanitarian. Honestly, is there anything Stevie Wonder hasn't done? Hailing from the heart of Motown, Detroit, this man didn't just make music, he reshaped it. He's one of the most multi-talented, genre-bending, soul-stirring artists the city, and honestly the world, has ever produced.
If you love Stevie Wonder like I love Stevie Wonder, I want you to stand up on your feet.
25 Grammy Awards, and that's not even counting the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award he snagged in 1996. An Oscar. Yep, he's got that too, for his 1984 classic, I Just Called to Say I Love You, from The Woman in Red. Oh, and in 1989, he took his rightful place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Being inducted into this, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is our commitment.
But he didn't stop there.
Hell no!
In 1999, Stevie made history once again, becoming the youngest recipient of the prestigious Kennedy Center Honors. Before that, in 1983, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And just to seal the deal, he picked up the Johnny Mercer Award in 2004 for his lifetime of groundbreaking, unforgettable songwriting. And let's not forget Songs in the Key of Life, that iconic 1976 double album that still hits just as hard today. In 2005, the Library of Congress cemented its legacy, adding it to the National Recording Registry for being, in their words, culturally, historically, or aesthetically important. Imagine being just 11 years old and already holding a record deal. Not because of privilege, not because of connections, but because your music, your soul, was undeniable. Before most of us even figure out how to ride a bike, Stevland Morris, better known to the world as Stevie Wonder, had already mastered the piano, harmonica, and drums. By 9, he was a one-man band. By 11, he was signed. And by adulthood, he was making the world dance, cry, protest, and hope. But here's what you might not know. Stevie was born 6 weeks early. That early birth led to a hospital-administered oxygen treatment that, unknown at the time, caused him to go blind. Tragic, right? Except Stevie never saw it that way. "I never thought of being blind as a disadvantage," he once said, and he meant it. Because what the world saw as a limitation became his superpower. He didn't just make music, he built worlds. He told stories that cut through language, race, and pain. Songs like Lately that break your heart, and Isn't She Lovely that make it soar again. Stevie's mom, Lula Mae, a woman with a tough life story, abandoned as a baby, shuffled from one relative to another. At 13, she moved in with her father, who didn't want her either. By 15, Lula Mae Hardaway was pregnant, thrown out, and married off to a violent man 30 years older. He beat her, pimped her, and still, somehow, she survived. She believed her son's blindness was punishment for her sins. That boy? Stevie Wonder. He told her, "I'm happy being blind if it means you'll stop crying." It worked because years later, she co-wrote his biggest hits, like Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm Yours, and I Was Made to Love Her. These aren't just songs. They're vibrant, passionate love letters and melody, which is pretty incredible considering the stark contrast to Lula Mae's own life challenges. Eventually, Lula Mae and her kids did manage to escape the nightmare with her husband. As a boy, he was wild-hearted, reckless, bursting with energy. He once jumped off a shed roof just to feel what flying might be like. He'd throw hands over girls and dance on the edge of danger, never afraid to leap. And that fire, it didn't fade. As a grown man, Stevie strolled through airports alone, went bowling, caught movies like anyone else. And on planes, his rhythmic head sways had fellow passengers whispering, "Is he high?" No, he was just vibing with the music only he could hear. And then there were moments so surreal, they felt like myths. In 1973, he told Rolling Stone he'd flown a Cessna from Chicago to New York. People freaked out. And during a trip to Ghana, he didn't just ride in a 10-seater, he landed it, just by touch, just by feel. The pilot stood back in awe. The sensitivity of his hands was unbelievable.
A handicap is only a handicap if you make it so. And the handicap today is a lack of communication.
Rewind to 1960. 10-year-old Stevie had already escaped a cruel father, already turned Detroit's gritty streets into his stage. By sheer fate, or maybe divine design, he crossed paths with Berry Gordy. Motown signed him in '61, but signing didn't mean riches. For every record sold at 98 cents, Stevie made just 2%, 2 pennies. He wasn't even given full creative control. He was a genius caged in Motown's machine until 1971. That's when Stevie flipped the script, asked for control, got denied, so he walked. Started recording his way. No rules, no permissions, just music. Motown blinked first. They came back to the table, and he came back with 5 albums in 5 years, each one a masterpiece. But it wasn't just about the music. Stevie wanted fairness, respect. So he hired a lawyer. Not your average suit. Johannan Vagoda looked more like a sunburnt beach drifter than a legal shark. Wore airline bags instead of briefcases. Spit sunflower seeds like bullets. And yet, he got Stevie a deal that paid. Too well. Because hidden in the fine print was a clause. Stevie would pay Vagoda's estate forever. Even after Vagoda died, Stevie and his children would be on the hook forever. And Stevie, he never saw that clause, literally. Vagoda read him the contracts, possibly skipped the fine print, possibly slipped it through in legalese. Stevie stopped paying. Vagoda's widow sued for $7 million. They settled quietly.
Damn. There's some deep shit he got there.
In the early 70s, Stevie Wonder was on fire. Motown had finally taken the leash off, giving him the freedom to dive deep into his own creative universe, and he ran with it. Think of a musical mad scientist, mixing analog soul with cutting-edge electronics. That was Stevie. One moment he was tinkering with futuristic instruments, the next he was writing lyrics that made you feel and think at the same time. And then came Superstition. That track, it just didn't hit, it growled, it hypnotized. It was funky and fierce, powered by the clavinet, an instrument that basically sounded like a guitar and a keyboard had a funky baby. It was wild, it was fresh, and it was the first time most people had ever heard anything like it. Here's the twist. Stevie originally wrote Superstition for his friend, the legendary guitarist Jeff Beck. But when Motown's Berry Gordy got wind of it, he insisted Stevie had to keep it. And after a little convincing, Stevie did just that. By the summer of 1973, Stevie was on top of the world. He just dropped Inner Visions, a game-changing album, and You Are the Sunshine of My Life was riding high on the charts. But behind the scenes, Stevie felt a strange darkness looming. He told Rolling Stone he felt like something terrible was about to happen. He just didn't know what. Then came August 6th. Driving through North Carolina, Stevie's car was rear-ended by a truck loaded with lumber. The crash left him with a fractured skull and in a coma. No one knew if he'd pull through. Enter Ira Tucker, an old friend. When nothing else worked, Ira leaned close to Stevie's ear and started singing Higher Ground. Slowly, Stevie stirred. A week later, he was out of the coma. 2 weeks later, he was cracking jokes and entertaining the hospital staff like only Stevie could. Fast forward to 1976, Stevie hears about a machine on NBC that can read text out loud to the blind. It wasn't flashy, just called the Kurzweil reading machine. But it was revolutionary. Stevie bought the first one ever sold and became close friends with its inventor, Ray Kurzweil. That's just who Stevie was, always moving forward, always seeing potential where others didn't. In 1985, Stevie Wonder pulled up to the South African Embassy in D.C. in a limousine, wearing a fur coat and a sign around his neck that read, "Free South Africa." Not exactly your average Valentine's Day attire. He then got himself arrested, willingly, with 47 others, calling it an expression of love for the people suffering under apartheid. Bold? Absolutely. That same year, he accepted an Oscar for I Just Called to Say I Love You and dedicated it to Nelson Mandela. South Africa's response? Ban his music. Wonder's response? Sing louder. On his 35th birthday, he blasted apartheid at the UN and even rewrote his lyrics to include Mandela's name. Fast forward 20 years, Mandela calls Wonder on his birthday and casually offers to name his child. And yes, one of the names was unpronounceable, so they went with Manla. Oh, and his happy birthday anthem? That's not for you. It was a rallying cry to make MLK Day a thing. And spoiler, it worked. Blood may be thicker than water, but in Stevie Wonder's case, it came with a price tag. Back in 2012, Stevie's own cousin, Alpha Walker, on probation for grand theft auto no less, decided extortion was his next big hustle. Armed with an 80-minute video of rants, dusty family footage, and a whole lot of delusion, he tried to shake down Stevie for $10 million. When that flopped, he dropped to $5 million. Still no. Eventually, he settled on a desperate $500K. Spoiler alert, this wasn't a masterclass in criminal strategy. Walker claimed Stevie owed him for life's misfortunes and accused him of everything from being a slumlord to, brace yourself, incest. Classy, right? But instead of cashing in, he walked straight into a police sting. His defense? He had a constitutional right to sell the video, as if the First Amendment was drafted for low-budget blackmail. He and his girlfriend ended up with 292 days in jail, mandatory counseling, and a one-way ticket out of Stevie's family tree. If James Brown hadn't grabbed the mic first, Stevie Wonder could have belted out Sex Machine like he wrote it himself. Because let's face it, Stevie's not just a music legend, he's also a certified baby-making machine. The man has 9 kids by 5 women. That's not a family tree, that's a small forest. He's walked down the aisle 3 times. First with singer Sarita Wright. She co-wrote hits with him after they split. Then came fashion designer Kai Millard in 2001. Fast forward to 2017, and he married Tamika Bracey, who, just to keep things spicy, is the same age as his eldest child. Bold move. Now, celebrity love stories usually end with the phrase, irreconcilable differences. Stevie? He's managed to stay on decent terms with most of his exes. Most. One, Angela McAfee, did sue him for $30 million, claiming broken promises and an unwanted gift of herpes. He clapped back with a lawsuit of his own, saying she swiped $160K worth of his stuff. The judge basically said, kids, go fight outside. But the wildest part, Stevie swears he can spot a beautiful woman despite being blind. How? Expensive top, soft voice, good perfume. And if she's light on her feet, she's probably pretty. If not, his crew steps in to describe outfits and, yes, give booty briefings. Yet for all the drama, Stevie means it when he sings about love. And as he put it, no one's been a greater advocate for love than me, in music and in life. Judging by the track record, yeah, that checks out. Stevie Wonder's still got it, and about $200 million in the bank. These days, he's dropping soulful singles, touring for Unity, and even became a citizen of Ghana. Basically, while most of us are Googling how to retire early, Stevie's out here proving retirement is just a myth with better lighting.